I'm Brian Richmond, Senior Director of Product Management here at Skydio. The keynote presentation just wrapped up here. We hope you had a great time, and we're excited to have you here with us virtually. All of our R&D teams have been working hard to prepare our products, including many of the prototypes that you saw today for this moment. And we're excited to give you a look under the hood during this session. We've got two of Skydio's most senior R&D leaders here to answer some of the most common questions we get about this technology. Do you each want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Sure, I can go first. Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. My name's Alden Jones. I lead customer success and product here at Skydio. I'm working on year number 5. And one of the things that's great about leading both those teams is I get to spend a lot of time in the field talking to customers, hearing about what's going well and what's not, and then I get to come back to the office and work on those problems. So excited to be here today, and I'll pass it off to Ryan.
Great. My name is Ryan Redding. I'm VP of Software Engineering here at Skydio, and I just crossed my 4-year mark here at Skydio. I've been working in spaces like this for over 20 years now. I started my career in technology actually after September 11th, and I was doing technology work to support folks that were out there supporting our national security missions, and then move into supporting enterprises and digitizing physical operations, and then joined Skydio here with everything that you're seeing today.
Great, thank you. So Ryan, Alden, and I were watching the chat during the keynote, and we've been aggregating your questions to figure out which areas are going to be the most interesting to you. But as we go along here, please feel free to keep on submitting questions in the chat, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. And as a reminder, for questions relating to technical specs and things like product data sheets, you'll be able to find those at skydio.com. For purchasing and sales questions, please email sales@skydio.com. But our goal here is to use this time to focus on some of the product details that are not as available to you unless you're here with us now on this virtual event. So before we jump into product questions, can you both talk a little bit about why you joined Skydio and what drives you now?
I can take that first. So I started my career in the Army and then moved on to heavy industry like trucking and critical infrastructure like telco. And one of the things that I feel very fortunate to have as an experience, but was very formative, was the feeling of what it means to rely on a piece of technology to keep myself safe, to keep my friends and my team members safe, or for our livelihoods, to do our job. And if you can imagine things like GPS or night vision, a lot of people had to work really hard to give us those technologies, and for me to be able to use them reliably in the field. And our customers are doing really sometimes dangerous and always critical work. And so every morning I think about my past, and I wake up, and I'm motivated to come deliver the next generation of technology. And I think that that's drones, and that's why I'm here at Skydio.
Cool. Yeah, I love working on stuff that matters. And watching the keynote today and thinking about all the stuff that our customers are doing is super motivating. And I also love the fact that we're able to support our military at Skydio, and it kind of brings me back to earlier in my career when I was kind of working more in that space. So I'm thrilled to be doing that here. But the thing that brought me into Skydio is this vision of what can be accomplished with connected fleets of autonomous drones. And I think we're seeing a lot of that come to life here with the product announcements that we have, what's happening out with DFR across cities across the US. I couldn't be more optimistic about the potential of this. I'm super thrilled to be working on it.
Great, thanks. So we'll start to move into the product questions now and the live chat. And again, please keep those questions coming. I thought we'd kick things off by first talking about the biggest differences between the dock for X10 announced today and the previous Skydio dock for S2 and X2.
Yeah. Adam talked about this a little bit, and I think the place to start with this is just recognizing that this isn't our first dock. In fact, I said I'd just been here for about 4 years, and one of the things that I was excited about was seeing when I first was interviewing at Skydio, there were prototype docks being built and tested and evaluated then. So this has been a technology like long in the making. We've been learning about this for a long time. We had our first generation product with Dock for X2, and we've been rolling all of those learnings up into the product. And so as we've been thinking about what is the greatest dock we could build for X10, there's been kind of three main pillars. We've been focusing on the ruggedization of the product. Reliability is a key feature. Adam talked about that at the keynote. And then having the best connectivity solution possible.
Yeah, and maybe just to dive into that a little bit more, I don't know if we're going to have slides in the chat, but you saw a little bit of this in the keynote. We saw the stress testing that we were doing. And as an example, we have these two really beefy motors that are able to open the dock and break through freezing ice that might be caked in if you're up in Alaska. We have a mega HVAC unit, so when we're flying in Vegas and it's 120 degrees, we can keep things rolling. And then other things along connectivity. I mean, we've spent a lot of time on roofs for the last year getting ready for this. And you know, when it's hot and cold, sometimes that's not as much fun. But what is great is now those learnings have rolled into the product. And so what you saw with Connect Access Points is a great example of this. Our original dock had the radios right there in the dock. And sometimes you might want to put that dock in a different place than where you want to have line of sight to see the dock and the drone connecting from a point-to-point radio perspective. And so just a tremendous amount of things like that we've integrated into this product. And ultimately, all this comes down to the outcomes that our customers are going to be able to get with that. And fundamentally, this product offers a tremendous new capability to deliver outcomes that we could not before.
Yeah, you saw on the slide there some of the stuff that we're doing in the lab in terms of like cold chambers, shaking tests. There's a bunch of like synthetic testing that we're doing. We can see that here. We're also just doing a tremendous amount of testing, just like the demos that you saw up in the keynote. So we have a permanent installation wind wall that's running essentially full-time, running autonomous missions up and down, collecting lots and lots of flight hours. We have folks on the roofs at headquarters flying every day. But then the other thing is we've actually gotten this product out with customers. And we talked a little bit about this in the keynote, but our alpha program has been a hugely important aspect of making sure that we have a product that actually works in the real world. So we've been, out in the heat in Nevada. We've been up on the rooftops in New York. We've been all around with this product, putting it through its paces in kind of real world scenarios. And I think that's like just super critical and super necessary to actually having a product that works.
Tunnels in Japan too?
Tunnels in Japan, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Getting back to reliability, just talk a little bit about the actual design of the dock as well. So the design of the dock has fundamentally changed from the Dock for X2. So the Dock for X2 had a sliding arm, it had a cradle, and we were leveraging Skydio's great autonomy to do precision landing into that cradle. But at the same time, it's a bit of a precarious type of design, and so we've taken all of that learning and folded it into what you see now, which is a platform design. And you can see the results as we're like testing landing in wind and rain, landing at night. We want to make sure that that product is designed so it works every time, and that we've put it through our paces so that we can know that's going to work every time for our customers.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there's been a couple questions coming in. I thought we'd take a quick tangent, answer a couple of those, and then we'll get back to some of the connectivity stuff. Paul's asking about mobile dock solutions. So to sort of expand on that question, I think we should talk a little bit about, can you mount a Skydio dock on a moving vehicle in a dynamic environment?
It's a great question, and Alden, you can add in on this, but the dock is designed to be portable, but not mobile. So you can take it and you can move it, say, onto a construction site temporarily, put it there, allow it to do useful work for you. When it's done, pack it up, move it to a next location and do that. But withstanding the kind of daily jolts that it would get on the back of a vehicle, the dock is not designed for that. So that is not a recommended installation.
I mean, fundamentally, just back to reliability, the shake test that you saw in the slide, that was for us to test that as it's being transported across the country to where you need to install it, that this thing's going to come out of the box and it's going to work. So we're trying to think really end to end from the moment that you're talking to your sales rep until 5 years later when this thing is still operating on your site.
And another like aspect on this, we've thought a lot about like whether that should be a use case that we support with Dock for X10. and certainly would love to continue to hear more about use cases that customers have and ideas. But I think I want to bring attention to kind of the full suite of capabilities. A lot of the use cases that came up there could also be solved by using hand launched X10 and remote operations capabilities, and without needing the complexity of a dock. And so when we look at kind of the suite of needs out there, actually having a truly like mobile mounted in a vehicle dock was not a high priority.
Yeah, Connect Fusion is not just for dock; it's for all of our X10 platforms.
Yeah, maybe we'll get back to that. So we're talking about reliability, ruggedness. We'll go a little deeper maybe on the connectivity bit now. We talked about Fusion today, the seamless switching between point-to-point and cellular. Maybe we can talk a little bit about when you might be using the Connect access points versus when you might use cellular, and what kind of actual real-world performance you might expect from those.
I can maybe start off. So back to sort of the intro there where we were talking about, we just want to build systems that work for customers. We know that our customers are really advanced, but in order to scale this, we believe that fundamentally things just have to get simpler. And so the core premise around Connect Fusion is that it just works and you don't have to think about it. And so the idea that you're able to switch between multiple different and redundant different types of communication paths is really critical to the overall vision.
Yeah. And I think a key thing that's important about the access points, and the reason that we created the access points, is we just have a wide variety of customers doing different use cases that need optionality. So with our current generation products, you have a controller and the radio and the antenna are baked into the controller. And with the dock, the radio was baked into the dock. And so you had to kind of choose, do I need to be in the best position for me, or do I need to be in the best position for the mission? Where's the best position for the dock versus where's the best position for the antennas? And so access points give us that optionality to be able to place the radio in the place where it's going to be best for the mission, while allowing the person or the dock to be in the best place for it. And so Adam talked a bit about this. We can see some examples of the use cases here. I think on the battlefield, there's a desire to be undercover, be in protected location as the operator, but have your radio out in the place where it's got the best visibility. So that's a pretty key use case, but you can see that coming back in for like law enforcement, even just being able to be in a hot day in the comfort of your air-conditioned truck. That gives you a lot of flexibility. And then of course for docked operations, having ideal placement for antennas and radios is super critical.
I think part of the thing that enables access points too, and we saw this a little bit in the demo, is Skydio's autonomy. I've been out flying distro lines with a customer, I won't say who, and we were out there for a few days in North Carolina, and we all wanted to sit in the truck. It was hot, it was sticky, but you can't do that unless you fundamentally trust the system not to crash into things. And that's something that is very unique to Skydio, that these two technologies combine and allow a different kind of outcome than we think any other system on the planet.
So the other thing about the access points, another dimension of flexibility, is the antennas. So again, with the previous dock and controller, we had fixed antennas in there. With the access point, we have standard antenna connectors, so that we have optionality for choosing the right antennas for the mission. For example, in a dock deployment, you may want to have omni antennas that provide you 360-degree coverage for an area. But if you're on the battlefield, for example, you're flying in a certain direction, and you might want to use directional antennas to maximize your range in that. And so access points also provide flexibility for improving range and improving kind of operational coverage depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
Maybe just to preempt a question too, and those two examples of directional antennas on the battlefield and omni antennas for dock, those are our initial launch antennas, and then we'll continue to build from there.
And so, maybe getting back, you asked about performance. I think Fusion is a super important dimension to this, and Adam talked about this. So especially in urban environments, these are interference-heavy environments. And so, when we're kind of testing in ideal kind of rural environments, and you have good line of sight and not a lot of interference, you're going to get lots of range. But in these urban environments, you're going to have that reduced. And so this idea of being able to leverage kind of the ubiquitous nature of cellular, but have coverage area, and having the system really manage that for you so that the system just works is super important. And the testing that we've seen has shown that. I imagine there's going to be lots of questions on like cellular. We're working heavily with T-Mobile right now. We've seen great results in a lot of cases, but there's areas where it's not as good. But I think when we can start pairing these technologies together to give optionality, we give lots of ways to actually set up the system to accomplish the mission.
Yeah,
Great.
The combinatory effect of all these technologies, I think, is the story of Skydio, right? Vision plus GPS, cellular plus point-to-point radio, and we're seeing this across the industry. Combining technologies ultimately allows you to achieve results instead of just relying on a single one.
Great, thank you. I'll hit on a couple. There's been a couple follow-up questions around mobile dock, and I'll just hit on those to say that disassembly of the dock is required for transport.
Yeah.
Once you are on scene, you can very quickly reassemble and deploy.
Should we maybe just talk a little bit about like the portability of it and like?
Yeah, so dock breaks down into 3 different pieces. We've been doing this a lot in our alpha testing. Also, dock
the 3 different pieces. The roof comes off.
Yeah, the roof comes off.
The body comes off the
main
legs.
body and the stand.
And then it supports a 2-person lift.
2-person lift. We're doing this today quite frequently in our early access program. Also important, when you do purchase the dock platform, all of our deployment services come with that, and that includes physically helping you get the dock into position, helping you figure out what kind of infrastructure you're going to want to go with that. Some people are looking for more resiliency and different kinds of connectivity options in really remote areas, and some people are trying to put docks like we're talking about with DFR on top of really tall buildings, and there's different paths that you need to take to do that. No matter what happens, part of what you get in the deployment service is Skydio deployment engineers on site with you, helping you make sure that we will achieve the results that you need, and that we're telling you in advance the correct connectivity options that work in your area of operations.
This is another aspect that I think has been informed by having gone through this a few times. And we actually spent a lot of time during the design phase making sure that the dock could be transported by a dolly comfortably by one person, make sure that we had the weight distribution in such a way so that we had portability there, making sure that the dimensions were such that you could fit through a standard door. So there's been a lot of thought in terms of like the actual like logistics of like running these things into the design.
I think we saw a little quick GIF, maybe nobody saw it in the keynote, but of a few of us dragging an early prototype up a really steep set of stairs in a relatively cold, slippery environment, and we know that those kinds of things are going to have to happen. We want to think about every possible range of options for where deployment needs to happen, and we've built the system to accommodate that.
I'm gonna go ahead and have us change gears a little bit and talk about another popular question here. Folks on the chat are wondering what Skydio dock costs. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, at a high level, so there's different configurations, especially when you get into the radios and attachments that you're going to want for your drone. But you should essentially budget around $50,000 for the hardware. But I think really zoom out of that way of thinking. Dock overall and how Skydio wants to work with our customers is about delivering solutions. And so when I think about how you're going to leverage Dock, it's not just, hey, can I buy this piece of hardware? It's how are we going to have the regulatory framework to support the operation that you want? How are we going to deploy this correctly? How are we going to maintain this? All of those things, that full end-to-end picture is how Skydio is thinking about Dock. What I would say is you should probably budget around $50,000 a year total. And we think about this as a 5-year program. And that full end-to-end solution is how we like to engage with our customers, and we think ultimately that's the right way to engage. This is not something that you go to Best Buy and buy. This is something that you want a partner shoulder to shoulder with you in the field, working through the nuances of your operation so that you can get the outcomes that you need.
I think this is super critical in that, we have a cool piece of hardware up here. Yep. It's got some shiny lights on it, but at the end of the day, like setting up a program and like what's happening with DFR, like we're just on the bleeding edge. The industry's on the bleeding edge of setting this up. And Adam highlighted this in the keynote. There's a lot of moving parts to bringing together. And we're trying to bring together as much of the technology solution as we can to be a highly integrated solution. But we also want to be partners in like standing up these programs, bringing in best practices, bringing in knowledge from across the industry, and really being a partner for you and being successful in setting up these programs. So it's less about buying the hardware and more about how do we like set up a successful program. And getting back to like why I joined Skydio, as an engineer and an engineering leader, that's the other thing that I love about this is we're out there with our customers all the time. I mean, I love going on site. I love having the engineers go on site, see what's going on. We've done ride-alongs with like police departments, understand the day-to-day, and fold that like learning back into our development process. And I think that's something that's really unique that Skydio brings to the table. And I'm really proud of it. So I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best example of that, it's an extreme example, is that we've all been to Ukraine. And we did that because it felt disingenuous to try and solve or help solve the problems that they're facing without being there ourselves. One other thing I'll say is, on the customer success side, myself and a lot of the folks on the team, we built drone programs before we came to Skydio. I built a program that did about 30,000 flights a year. And I'm really proud of that, but I think ultimately when we're thinking about this kind of disruptive and big change technology, change management in your organization is a real thing that we want to help you with. And all the documentation and regulatory services and all the services that we're talking about ultimately are in the service of helping you conduct change management in your organization, because we know that we are part of an existing ecosystem. Defense was defending us before we got here. Law enforcement was protecting us before we got here. Utilities were keeping the lights on before we got here. And all of those use cases or industries, we're doing that with a suite of technology before we got here. And now that we're here, we know that we need to plug into that existing ecosystem, because getting the data where you need it in your system of record is not just a technology solution, it's a programmatic solution, and we want to help you with that change.
I'll shift us to another category of question. Quite a few of these were coming in towards the beginning as well as this morning's keynote. When will the dock begin shipping? When can folks expect it in the wild?
Yeah, so I think we talked about this a little bit in the keynote, but maybe to get in a few more details. So early next year, but for us, we plan on putting our first early access next gen dock down in January. The early access program is already booked up, so we're going to be cranking hard to get those things in the field, confirming everything that we've talked about here. And then orders that are coming in today should be shipping in summer, and we're excited to get after it.
Great. There's been a lot of strong international interest in the chat as well. I thought we should address that. When will we be shipping internationally, and or where? How do we think about that?
Yeah, so maybe just to start like with
Sure,
the basics on this, and you can add on. But to start, we're going to be focusing on US and Japan as our primary markets. And we're going to be spending our energies there. We absolutely see this as a global product. And see the opportunity for it having impact across the world. So that is something that's high on our radar, and we're going to be moving aggressively to supporting, but we're going to make sure we land it super well here in the US for our US customers and Japan customers first.
Yeah, nothing to add.
Great. Maybe we'll shift over and talk about DFR Command a little bit. A specific question that has come in, I think maybe there's some follow-up based on what folks saw this morning in the end-to-end demo. Can you fly more than one drone at the same time? And why might you want to do that?
Well, it's a great question. Well, we showed it here live on stage. That multiple drones are supported, and I think if you just think about programs at scale, like that is an inevitability. We're kind of moving, kind of looking, backwards from a typical deployment where one person hands-on joysticks in the field, like flying a drone, and especially as the technology and the regulatory landscape changes, that you're going to have centralized command and operators that are basically in control of multiple drones doing useful things, and the autonomous nature of the drones are really what enables that.
Yep.
And certainly there's software integrations. Team has put a tremendous amount of work into the experience that you saw here on stage, and that's actually something that is quite complicated that just kind of looks seamless. So I think we can get a lot more into like what are the important aspects of something like DFR command in terms of like reducing cognitive load, helping people focus on the thing that matters. But the TLDR is we will support flying multiple drones.
Maybe one thing to add on there, and this goes back to how much we enjoy getting shoulder to shoulder with our customers. I mean, some of the folks on the team were UAS military operators before coming to Skydio, and there's a concept there called on-station transfer, which we think, just to go deep real quick into DFR for a moment, is absolutely applicable for DFR. We saw in the demo here, Deepu was looking at the suspect. There was another incident happening in this case, so he wanted to dispatch a drone, but we also know that we have customers who are doing barricaded subjects, and they might be flying for hours, right? The negotiator, it might take time to get through that stuff. And so you can imagine a world where we know that batteries or fuel are not infinite, so whether you have a gas-powered engine or not, and you don't want to lose situational awareness. The idea of returning home, losing awareness, sending something back. So the workflow end-to-end is so important to us, and going deep for something like on-station transfer for the DFR, the platform that you saw today allows and enables those kinds of workflows. And I think we can think about that across all of our customer segments. Like that's the kind of depth that we want to get into, and we probably shouldn't talk about it here, but it'll get down into the weeds of just what's the easiest way for you to even move the mouse the least amount possible to click the button.
Yeah. I guess maybe just to kind of riff off of DFR command, I think, the importance of it goes well beyond just the operation of drones. So making, we kind of got right into it on stage here, but this idea of like data that's coming in from these systems of record, coming right into the operating, screen of folks that are in these command centers, and being able to like seamlessly, dispatch drones, dispatch resources to get to incidents that matter quickly is super critical, and like that requires tight integration with all of these systems, and I think that's just a fundamentally important capability. And then flying the drone is important, but we're not flying drones to fly drones, we're flying drones to get information to be able to make decisions. So things like having a ready link that you can distribute around to the people that matter, so that the folks that are making decisions about the resources to deploy, about like the type of force to use, about how to engage, have that information. That's a huge part of the value proposition of DFR command. And then the end of it here in the resolve phase is like capturing all that data in a way that you can store it for processing for evidentiary purposes, or establish community transparency. This is the full picture of what needs to happen to be successful, and that's really what DFR command is all about.
Yeah. There are a couple specific questions which I think we've answered, but maybe not super directly, which I'll take on here around battery swapping and charge times. So I think we just spoke about on-station relief, and I think that is key here. That is our priority right now, to have the most seamless on-station relief sort of automated workflows as possible, such that there are no gaps in coverage at all. And that also allows us to build sort of the ultimate in overall dock product reliability. So that's how we think about that.
We also have, part of our learnings in working through X2 dock, we've built a tool. Part of the process when we're working with a public safety customer is we will ingest all of the calls for service data that you have historically. And we'll map where we think we can deliver the best outcomes for you based on your priorities. If time to respond is a priority versus just wide area coverage, this is part of the process. And to Ryan's point, we're entering this ecosystem. I think we're doing a good job. We've been here, but it's been around for a long time. And so agencies have, decades of call for service data, and that level of detail, I think, allows us to go and plan for the right kind of redundancy or on-station transfer or multiple simultaneous operations that you want for the op tempo or the busyness of your agency.
So the other thing I want to drive home a bit here as well is we're talking about docks, and they're going to be shipping new order shipping mid next year and the second half of next year, but the software stack that we're talking about now are available today.
Yeah.
And folks that, depending, there's a combination of like both having operational flexibility, but also being able to get started today and build up the operational rhythms that are going to be, needed for when a dock comes. And we're seeing folks doing this with a patrol-led model.
Yep.
So having X10s in patrol cars, on demand, being able to put them down, have a remote operator take over, use the same exact software stack to then provide remote assistance to somebody on the ground. We're seeing rooftop DFR with like crew-led base, so like without a dock, but a human doing operations there, swapping batteries, like helping support that. And then even like pop-up DFR commands, you know, if there's like something, Captain Buster talked about Oklahoma City Fair, there's like an event or something that's happening there, being able to put up a small command mobily, have docks, or have X10s there, remote operators, that are able to like provide overwatch and situational awareness. So this stuff is available today, and you can get started, and it's the exact same software stack that you can get integrated in with your ecosystem, that you can learn about, have pilots trained on, and then when the dock is ready, that just slots in seamlessly.
Yeah, for those in the chat that have been asking about how to get this now, how to start a trial POC, that is the answer. Sales@skydio.com is the best route to get that rolling. There's also been a couple questions about some of the awesome capabilities shown as part of DFR Command, and folks are wondering if they'll be able to get those things without DFR Command, things like map overlays, some of the multi-drone capability, things like that. Will that be available outside of DFR Command?
Yeah, I mean, just generally to zoom out a little bit, DFR Command is built on the overall Skydio platform and architecture, and it's tailor-made and specific, like Ryan mentioned, with ready, respond, resolve kinds of workflows to make that seamless for specific customers in the public safety world who need to go do things. But that doesn't mean that the underlying technologies aren't being delivered and aren't super valued to the rest of our customer base. So maybe short answer is yes. I don't know how much specifics we want to get into.
Yeah, I mean, the technologies, the thing I would say is the technologies are there and are applicable across a wide variety of use cases. You know, as that makes sense, we're going to make those technologies available to all use cases. DFR Command is a specific instantiation of this that is optimized for solving the DFR and public safety use case. But, you know, the same underlying technology may apply across industries, and we'll certainly be bringing those as it makes sense.
Great. Let's shift gears a little bit again. Maybe we'll go back just a little bit to some of the services discussion. There's been a couple questions about that, and if folks will be able to leverage third-party maintenance or deployment services to go along with our dock.
Yeah, I can take that. So Ryan mentioned this before. We believe that dock is a global platform, and we're starting with the US and Japan, but we know that this will be a tool that will be used worldwide. And we also know that organizations such as partners know how to operate inside of their communities and their regions oftentimes better than somebody far away can. So just to say it out loud, I mean, we absolutely plan to and are in the process of certifying third parties to work helping us install and maintain docks. And that's an ecosystem that we're just really hungry to continue to grow. Part of the reason that we've been doing these early access programs is, you know, as you build a program and start to understand the technology and all of its nuances, it's really important when you're working with partners to be able to give really clear, specific work instructions. I've dealt with this a little bit in my prior life. You know, if I was having a third-party engine maintainer go work on a truck, if you can't explain exactly what needs to happen and have that documented and provide certifications so that the right people are going to come and the end customer is going to get what they need, then that's really challenging. And so a lot of the work that we're doing now is building those programs, but we are super enthusiastic about all kinds of partners coming with us on this journey, and it's something that we're already working on today.
Great, thank you. Let's jump around yet again here. Maybe we can talk a little bit about another big announcement today, which was the dock for X10D. We've got a visual, maybe we can pull that up and just talk a little bit about what that means, what the implications are, what the benefits might be.
So I think this is super exciting. We've been working on this technology with the previous generation, and as I mentioned, it's a fundamentally connected technology, and because of that and the nature of the software architecture that supports that, it's kind of been something that's not really applicable or like unusable by our government customers or government partners that are working in kind of these critical areas that have high security needs and are high security applications. And so this is allowing us to bring this technology to those agencies and those use cases. And we've designed the software so that you can really bring that, kind of regardless of what you're doing. If you have air-gapped networks, you can bring that software behind the air gap. If you're working on high-side networks, you can do that for things like, like SIPR or whatever your agency network is. And now we have the flexibility to support a wide variety. I mean, the base security, I think, is a great example. There's lots of other, critical infrastructure types of applications out there that are high security that really demand this type of architecture. So I think this is super important. I think this is also probably the only system in the world that's going to be able to address those types of use cases. So I think it's really powerful.
I was hoping we could nerd out about SIPR and NIPR. I got
It's been a while.
Yeah,
but,
it's been a while. I ran the Italian S2 shop for a little bit when I was a captain. So I mean, look, the other thing is not just with Doc, but just in general, we already partner with ATAC. We know that delivering this information over tactical networks is just super important. And by definition, those tactical networks are local area architecture.
Yeah, and this has been part of our alpha deployments as well. We've been out there in these types of like offline environments, tactical environments, and testing the dock and the software with great success, and integrating in with other robotic systems to provide advanced like types of security. And so it's very clear to me that that's the future, and I think this is going to unlock a lot of really interesting use cases.
Cool. We'll transition to a couple of hardware specific questions here. One question is Skydio Dock drone agnostic? Maybe we can talk a little bit about the benefits of a fully integrated system with the Skydio Dock and the Skydio drone.
Yeah, I guess I can start with this a little bit, and feel free to chime in.
Sure.
So I would say the Skydio Dock for X10 has been built for the X10.
Yeah.
Currently, it supports only like that drone. However, the concept of the dock is something that is very applicable to, if we have, other form factors or iterations on the product, that those design elements will still remain highly relevant.
Nothing to add.
Great. There's a couple earlier questions about snow and rain. We talked about the IP55 rating on stage. We did a demonstration in rain. How do we handle snow?
Well, first off, we have heaters built into the dock, so we melt snow. That's why I was nerding out about the big motors to crack the ice. That's part of the workflow. You also saw how the dock opens. There was some thought behind that to sort of dump the snow off the back as the thing rotates around itself. So bring on the snow. We're excited for snow.
Yeah, maybe just going a little bit deeper there, because we didn't talk much about this, but inside the dock, it's basically a full thermal management system.
Yeah.
And it's important for being able to like operate in extreme weather conditions, for things like resiliency to snow, but it's also important for like battery and like system health management as well. We need to keep that system at the right temperature, whether it's like 110 outside,
Yep.
or like below 0 outside. And so the system has that all fully integrated to keep the drone up and running as optimal as possible.
I mean, this is a little bit of a dovetail, but one of the things that Ryan and I and our teams are working on, which we're pretty excited about, is the full enterprise management of these platforms at scale across your enterprise. So you can imagine a world where you have all these connected devices, they're sitting inside of connected docks, the health status of those things. There are some customers that we have, they have a national footprint. So it would not be crazy on a given day. If anybody's lived in New England, sometimes Thanksgiving it's 0 and sometimes it's 70 degrees. But you can imagine a world where you have on the same day a platform that's in 100-degree weather and 0-degree weather, because that's the scale of your footprint as an organization. And we want to be able to show you the health status of those things so that you can manage your fleet however you need to accomplish your mission.
We haven't like got into this much, but maybe just a quick aside on redundancy and reliability and how we're thinking about deployments. So we're seeing a lot of need, and we are designing the system around the ability to deploy them in groups, and we call those groups of docks a hive. So the idea that you have multiple redundant systems, you have multiple systems in parallel that can be coordinating to respond to events, and that they are deconflicting with each other in intelligent ways. And so we're thinking about different like deployment models. That is a fundamental concept that we are building around, and we recommend deployment strategies around.
Yeah.
And maybe we can just jump back a little bit to Skydio Connect access points. There's been a couple more questions about that.
Sure.
A couple of questions about is there a radio in the dock itself, and how does that work in conjunction with the access points?
Yeah, I can take that. So there is a radio in the dock itself. So if you just set up a dock with no Connect access point, it can operate within a limited range. You'll get the best range, the optimum range, by having external access point with a good mounting location. But we'll have a radio. And then, also even without an access point, if you have strong cellular coverage, you can operate that system completely off of cellular using the local radio. That local radio is also there for supporting media offload. So when the system lands, starts charging, then it's connected to the local dock radio for doing media offload, and that link is optimized for that high-speed transfer. And then you don't have to worry about anything beyond that. As we're taking off, we're going to transition the drone from the local radio that's on the dock to either an access point or cellular, and all that's going to be seamless.
Maybe just to talk about that a little bit more, we haven't dove into the details on backhaul, but just to say it up front, today we've tested and we will support backhaul in multiple different configurations. We have folks who are doing backhaul only through Starlink, so satellite only. We have folks using cellular. We have folks using both. There's solutions out there to bond satellite or cellular. And of course, if you have access to Ethernet, we love plugging in and going hardline as well. So all those different options are there, and that's to afford the ability to deploy in more austere or more urban environments, whatever's going to work best for your use case.
Great. Question just came in about options for backup power. So thinking again about very isolated environments, redundancy is critically important. We've talked about it from a connectivity standpoint. Does Skydio Dock support or have built-in backup power?
Yeah, so it does. Actually, if you haven't checked out Caltrans's LinkedIn page, they have some great media of what they've done over there in early access, and I highly recommend it. We're also going to be working with partners who can provide battery backup, solar. If you want to run them on a generator, you can. All those things, I think, depending on the type of mission that you're kind of trying to complete, it should be part of the consideration and something that the Skydio team will be working with you on as you go through the process.
Great. We'll do probably two more here as we wind down. First, there are a couple questions about sort of built-in analysis tools versus reliance and integration on third parties. So maybe a quick hit on sort of Skydio Extend and how that sort of unlocks broader end-to-end workflows.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the first baseline is that our software system is built on top of an API layer. So you can go on our website today, you can go and get the developer documentation, and if you have the resources or the interest, you can start building integrations against that API today. We've also added on capability called Skydio Extend, which is kind of an umbrella over the API, which makes it very easy for us to integrate with third-party platforms through an integration system that's on top, so that you don't need to have your own development resources, development team to leverage those APIs. We also have services that go along with that, and there's just such a wide variety of different tools out there in terms of analysis capabilities for imagery and the data that's coming in. So for our customers to take advantage of that, these systems need to be integrated with those. You can actually go onto the Skydio Cloud today. There's an integrations tab. You can see a library of all the things that we support today out of the box. Certainly using these APIs and the platform that I've discussed, it's possible to add more. We'd love to hear what integrations folks are most excited about. So please, you can go in there, you can click, you can request, you can type in your feedback. It'll come in directly to us. Yeah, excited to hear more from folks.
Cool. And then the last one here is a bit of a go back on an earlier conversation we had, but there's an ask about if we have built-in diagnostic system checks, so folks know the health of their system and how to manage them and maybe what things can be addressed proactively.
So maybe twofold is on this, and Alden, if you can bookend my comment here. So there's a ton of system health checks that go into both the drone operation and the dock operation, and you can see some of those as the drone's being launched and it's doing some of its checks, and it's showing some of that on screen, and so all of that's going to be happening, but we've been just talking about this. One of the things that we need to do, we are going to be working on, is also exposing more of that to our customers for helping maintain and manage the system. So that's going to be a big part of kind of where we're taking the platform as well. So it's not just about Skydio doing it all, but also exposing the data to help the operators, the program managers of these systems understand the health of their fleet. And
I think that's also important. I know we're going to run out of time here, but just for the maintenance story long term of these things. I mean, these docks break down into major component modules. We've intentionally built sensing capabilities for each of those major modules, and whether you want to do the maintenance yourself or one of our partners is, or we are, overall, a lot of what a dock does is reduce truck rolls, and so we want to reduce truck rolls in the full ecosystem, not just in the critical missions. And so knowing that you're going to go out and fix whatever parts you need to the right time, the first time, all of that is part of how we're thinking about sensing and being able to check the health of the system.
We could go on for another 15 minutes on this. I'm
yeah,
sure,
we probably could. It's kind of my baby.
I'll unfortunately have to wrap us up here, but thanks to you both so much for doing this. I'd like to remind everybody to check out Skydio.com for all of the detailed product information, data sheets, specifications for the dock, remote ops, DFR command, and X10, of course. For purchasing and sales questions, please contact us directly at sales@skydio.com. And we very much look forward to having you all at the rest of our virtual events over the next 2 days. And lastly, for those of you who did submit questions live in the chat that we were not able to directly address, we do plan to follow up with you directly. So thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.